the people level, like what APPCU does, as opposed to the government level, is the natural way to create ties between nations.
APPCU organizes academic and cultural visits to China and helps facilitate economic, trade cooperation and partnerships between the Philippines and China. The association is indeed very active in the conduct of the APPCU Forum, which is a platform for a constructive conversation on current bilateral issues among policy and thought leaders, experts, and stakeholders to foster friendship, understanding, and cooperation between the two countries. APPCU is currently under the leadership of Chairman and Secretary Raul Elembino and its President Jeffrey Nang. APPCU has regional chapters in Baguio, Cebu, Davao, Angeles City, and Pangasinan.
Truly, in fulfilling the mission of APPCU, it is my honor to present to you one of the initiatives of the association, together with the Chinese Embassy, this novel and newly launched award-giving body, the Award for Promoting Philippines-China Understanding, APPCU.
APPCU will build a more vibrant and dynamic bridge of understanding and friendship between China and the Philippines in the new era.
APPCU is an annual undertaking, and each year there will be 10 laureates or awardees. Those who are eligible for awards are Filipino citizens who have committed themselves to the improvement and advancement of Philippines-China bilateral relations using their fields of disciplines and area of expertise, such as public service, media journalism, trade and commerce, and arts and culture and sciences.
I look forward to more productive years ahead of the Award for Promoting Philippines-China Understanding. Thank you.
Last September 10, 2021, the first batch of 10 well-deserving individuals received recognition for their efforts and contributions in fostering and promoting understanding, appreciation, and the reinforcement of amity between the Philippines and China in a virtual ceremony. Last year, first ever APPCU Hall of Fame awardees were former First Lady Imelda Romualdez Marcos and former Special Envoy to the Philippines to China and Philippine Silk Road International Chamber of Commerce Chairman, Ambassador Francis Chua. The awardees for the outstanding contributions were Philippine Association for Chinese Studies, President Dr. Romel Banlawi, Global Talk News Radio, and ang maestro host, Herman Camintong Laurel, kaisa para sa Kaunlaran Incorporated founder, Teresita Ang C., and Confucius Institute at UP Diliman Director, Dr. Lourdes Tanueco Nepomuceno. The awardees for the major contributions category are founding president of Peking University Overseas Students Alumni Association, Professor Jaime Flor Cruz, physician, lawyer, and professor at the University of San Agustine's College of Liberal Arts in Iloilo, Dr. Mario Leonardo Emilio Portadera. President and Editor-in-Chief of SovereignPH.com, Adolfo Ado Paglinawan, and 51 Talk Brand Ambassador John Nicolo Fernandez. This year, another batch of 10 commendable and esteemed APPCU laureates will be honored and recognized for their contributions to promoting understanding and friendship between the Philippines and China. The award indeed is in many ways a commemoration of the Filipino-Chinese Friendship Day and the day when the formal diplomatic ties were established between the Republic of the Philippines and the People's Republic of China on the 9th of June, 1975. May we take on a greater role in the communal task of promoting Philippines-China mutual understanding and friendship. Sheshe, salamat and mabuhay.
As I have mentioned earlier and explained in the APPCU AVP, the two entities or organization that jointly set up APPCU are APPCU and the Chinese Embassy in Manila. On this note, Representatives from both organizations will deliver their opening statements on behalf of the APPCU 2022 Organizing Committee, composed of representatives from APCU and the Chinese Embassy in Manila. Please join me in welcoming our first resource speaker, APCU Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Peter Lavigne, for his opening statement. Mr. Lavigne, you now have the floor.
Organizing Committee of APPCU with a double P. I would like to welcome everyone to this media forum for the 2022 APPCU Awards. For nearly a year now, the APPCU Organizing Committee has worked tirelessly for the second edition of these prestigious awards. Our efforts are now near its end as the awarding ceremony will be held this coming Friday. This is time, as you know, as one of the highlights for the celebration of our 47th anniversary of the establishment of formal diplomatic relations between the Republic of the Philippines and the People's Republic of China, signed on June 9, 1975. This year's awards has also gained significance as our country prepares for a new president whose family was instrumental in forging these diplomatic relations. Last year, as you know, we already cited as one of our laureates the role of Madam First Lady Imelda Marcos. And no less than President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. himself visited China during those historic moments, meeting no less the People's Republic of China's founding father, Chairman Mao Zedong. We look forward to the continuing close relations between our two countries, restarted by President Rodrigo Duterte, and to be intensified under President-elect Bongbong Marcos. We in APPCU with the 1P and APPCU with the double P shall also continue with our task in promoting better understanding and friendship on the people-to-people level. The mass media and social media are our vital partners towards meeting these ends. And we thank you for joining us today and for your continuing support. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Sir Peter, for that meaningful opening statement. Now join me in welcoming Councillor Si Yonghui from the Chinese Embassy in Manila for his opening statement. Councillor Si, the floor is yours. We apologize to our audience. We're just having a slight technical difficulty.
here.
Oh, no.
Can you hear me? I'm speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Councillor C.
Good. Just
You
fix
now
the
have the
problem.
floor.
So it's my turn. It's my turn to speak.
You now have the floor, Councillor C.
Good. Thank you. Sorry. Hi. I'm Yonghui Xie from the Chinese Embassy. Honorable awardees of the second APPCU Award for promoting Philippine-China understanding. Friends from the media, good morning. It has been delayed a little bit due to some technical problem. Sorry for that. On behalf of the Chinese Embassy, I would like to welcome you all to this virtual pressure. It's a mixed one. I'm sorry I cannot make it to the scene, so I joined this presser via Zoom. The award for promoting Philippines-China understanding, APPCU, is a newly established award just for 2 years. This is the second time. The award was jointly initiated by the Chinese Embassy and the Association for Philippine-China Understanding, APPCU. And it was first announced by Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi and former Philippine President GMA in January last year during Wang Yi's official visit to the Philippines. This is the second year the embassy and APPCU hold award and related activities. APPCU is designated to pay tribute to those who have made their contributions to promoting mutual understanding and friendship between our two countries, so that we can encourage more people to follow the laureate's suit to enhance mutual trust, scale down differences, and boost affinity and promote collaboration among the Chinese people and the Filipino people. Here I would like to elaborate a little bit on the rationale and also some of the considerations behind the initiation of this APPCU. I would offer 3 angles. First is the historical angle. APPCU is aimed to inherit and carry on a fine tradition of friendly exchanges over the past century. As we all know that China's friendly interactions with the Philippines date back to over a millennium. Over the past millennium, generations of wise and brave predecessors initiated trade and people-to-people bonds between China and the Philippines. In the early 16th century, the great Chinese navigator Zheng He, or locally known as Cheng Hou, was sent by Emperor Yongle of China's Ming Dynasty to make multiple visits to Sulu Archipelago on his 7 overseas voyages seeking friendship and cooperation. This actually happened more than a century ahead of the Western colonizers who come to discover this part of the world. In sharp contrast to Western colonizers, what China brings to the Philippines was not conquer nor war, but cooperation and friendship. During the same period, the East King of Sulu, Sultan Paduka Patala, made a return and goodwill visit to China, to Ming Dynasty. And unfortunately, the Sultan passed away on way back home due to illness, and some of his family members decided to stay in China and take care of his royal tomb built by the Ming Dynasty. Today, the Sultan's descendants in China counts 21 generations. They are the keepers of the tomb, as well as the keepers of their Islamic faith in China. I'm happy to see that Princess Jasel Kilam, a descendant of Sultan of Sulu, Paduka Patala, is among the 10 laureates of this year's APPCU award. The story of Zheng He and Sultan Paduka Patala are 2 of the many extraordinary representatives over our long time of friendly interaction in history. Looking back into history, we will find that our two peoples have such natural aspirations to know each other, develop friendship, and live in harmony and peace. Today, we should inherit and carry forward the spirit of our ancestors to continue this journey of mutual understanding and friendship. The second angle I will offer is to the today, present day, to meet the reality of our bilateral relations. During the past 6 years, under the strategic guidance of President Xi Jinping and President Duterte, China and the Philippines have entered a new golden era and established a comprehensive strategic cooperative relationship, which has brought tangible benefits to the people of both countries, and also put in positive energy into the peace and stability of the region, especially over the past 2.5 years facing the COVID pandemic.
Recording in progress.
During this past 2.5 years facing the COVID pandemic, our two countries and peoples have been fighting the virus in solidarity, forcing an even closer partnership. A friend in need is a friend indeed. China will never forget the help the Philippines rendered at the initial stage of China's pandemic. And we also reciprocating it in good faith. And China has also shown its gratitude for the help that Philippines render us. Apart from being the only country that sent a medical expert team to the Philippines, China has also donated a generous quantity of much needed medical supplies such as PPEs, testing kits, and ventilators. China was also the first country to reach out and provide vaccines to the Philippines. And so far, China has provided more than 57 million doses of vaccine to the Philippines, accounting, for about 40 of the national vaccine supply in the Philippines by the end of as of the end of last year. As the interests of our two countries are closely intertwined and the people-to-people interactions are increasingly intensive, it is especially necessary that we have the APPCU award to answer the people's aspirations and meet the need to jointly construct a closer China-Philippine partnership. The third angle I think I offer is to look forward to the future. A few days ago, on May 18th, President Xi Jinping had his first phone conversation with Philippine President-elect Bongbong Marcos. President Xi stressed that both countries should carry forward the friendship on both sides and stay true to our original aspirations. The two countries should also grasp the general trend, write a grand story on the China-Philippine friendship in the new era, and follow through the blueprints for bilateral friendly relations, so as to usher in an even higher, brighter future for the bilateral ties. President-elect Bongbong Marcos also said that the new incoming administration would make Philippines-China relations a foreign policy priority and is ready to strengthen exchanges at various levels and deepen cooperation with China in economy, trade, infrastructure, energy, culture, and education. He also expressed the hope that the relationships between China and the Philippines could shift to a higher gear, leading to more fruitful and meaningful outcomes for the two countries under his administration. Looking to the future, I believe APPCU would build a new bridge of understanding and friendship between China and the Philippines in the new era, and the China-Philippine friendship will gain more and more popularity with the support of APPCU award. As the Chinese saying goes, that friendship, which derives from close contact between the people, holds the key to sound state-to-state relations. To that end, we need to raise awareness and reduce misunderstanding towards each other. China and the Philippines have great potential for cooperation in the field of people-to-people and socio-cultural exchanges, and there is still much for the two peoples to learn about each other. We have to admit also that certain misunderstandings and differences are, to some extent, a hindrance to, elevating our friendship. And also it's high time for us to join hands to overcome this misunderstanding on certain issues. Well, finally, I would like to congratulate all of the recipients, the laureates, the 10 laureates of the second APPCU for their achievements in promoting the cause of China-Philippine friendship in various sectors such as education, media, culture, social activities, as well as public services. This year's winner of APPCU includes not only political elites, such as former President Estrada, Ambassador Benedicto, and also Princess Kiran, but also opinion leaders, media people such as Wilson Lee. It also includes not only senior professionals such as Professor Celso, but also young leaders such as Professor Pamituan, and also Director April Dayap. Thanks to their efforts, Chinese and Filipinos could better understand and support the China-Philippine friendship, therefore creating a good atmosphere for the continuous development of our bilateral relations. And I think that's it from me. Mabuhay and salamat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor C, for that very enlightening message about the century-old relations between the peoples of China and the Philippines. Since the launch of the second year of APPCU last January 2022, members of the board and the committee behind APPCU have endeavored to streamline its search for well-deserving individuals for recognition of their efforts and contributions in fostering and promoting understanding, appreciation, and the reinforcement of amity between the Philippines and China. 10 public and private sector individuals have passed the 3-stage selection and judging process from a list of nominees beginning the early quarter of this year. Their work's prestige, nature, and extent are essentially the basis for identifying their respective award category. Also this year, the organizing committee of APPCU has extended a special award, the Gawad Sultan Paduka Pahala, to the late Philippine Ambassador to China, His Excellency Jose Santiago Chito Santa Romana. Without further ado, join me everyone in welcoming the 2022 APPCU laureates present today for their short opening statements. Let's just first give them a round of applause before their opening statements. Let us start with Mr. Wilson Lee Flores, the honorary chairman of Anvil Business Club, board member and chairman of FFCCCII, that's a mouthful, Public Information and Media Committee, and moderator of Manila Forum at 83-year-old Kamuning Bakery, followed by the Manila Standard columnist and contributor of China Daily, Global Edition, and Global Times, Mr. Rodrigo P. Capunan.
Thank you, Sas. You look younger in person than in social media. I always follow you. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. It's an honor and thank you to APPCU for this encouraging award. This award is an encouragement to all people, not only to the awardees, but to all people in the Philippines who sincerely wish to promote better understanding between the Philippines and our neighbor China. So we congratulate the APPCU organization and thank them for this. Earlier, Peter Lavinia in Davao reminded us that Philippine-China diplomatic relations is now 47 years old this year. And Councillor Xie earlier mentioned Actually, Philippines-China friendship is more than 1,000 years. I'd like to mention only, there was a businessman friend of us told me before, Philippines, our encounter with foreign countries in the past thousands of years had been very interesting. How was our interactions and experiences with foreign countries? With Spain, when Spain came to the Philippines, it was war and colonization. We became a colony. And then briefly, the British came also in the 1700s. It was also war, British against Spain. And we became a colony of the UK for a short time. And then another foreign encounter was the US. When they came here in the 1890s, it was war and then colonization. And then Japan. When Japan came also, it was war and 3 years of colonization. What about China? More than 1,000 years of encounter with the Philippines. What they brought here was siopao, siopao and mami. In 1,000 years, it's only trade, it's cultural exchanges. So thank you for this award. All of us will continue to do our humble share to promote better understanding between our two countries, neighbors. There's also a saying, I don't know if I read it with SAS or from someone. Somebody said, it's more important to have good relations with your neighbor than, more important your neighbor, good relationship, than your faraway relative. So let us promote better friendship with our neighbor, which is not only an ordinary neighbor, it is again rising as the economic superpower of the 21st century. Thank you very much to APPCU. Thank you.
Mr. Rod Kapunan, the floor is yours.
Good morning. First, I would like to thank you for giving me this award. I'm deeply honored. And what I'm going to tell you is is to clarify things about Philippine-Chinese relations. This is particularly about our claim in the South China Sea. Gusto ko lang maklarify ito because most of us insist that South China Sea belongs to the Philippines. The original treaty, the original document that we have is the Treaty of Paris, signed on December 10, 1898. And the Treaty of Paris clearly indicate the demarcation boundary between China and the Philippines that separates them through the South China Sea. Yun lang, I want to clarify this, you know. And one thing unusual about that boundary is that the so-called Spratly Islands or group of islands, now known as Kalayaan Group of Islands, is not included in the boundary. It is outside the Philippine territory. In fact, our boundary is much closer to Palawan than to any other islands in the Pacific. So, I noticed that when I first wrote this column, sulat ko ito, I said that South China Sea is not part of the Philippines. And to my surprise, immediately, a reporter from China Daily called me up. And then she asked me, I still remember the reporter, are you sure what you are saying? Sabi, yes, I'm telling you that because I have here the map, the Treaty of Paris. Sabi niya, it will create a problem because Filipinos insist that South China Sea belongs to the Philippines. No, it's not part of the Philippines. Actually, I told them that South China Sea belongs to China. The basis that I'm using is the Treaty of Paris itself. It is indicated by degrees, the latitude and the longitude. It's very clear. And so, I did not insist on that, but later on, under the Aquino administration, this problem cropped up because of the so-called incursions of Chinese vessels to the Philippines. Many Filipinos started protesting and insisting that it is ours. I tried to revive an old treaty. I remember way back in 1950, the United States urged the Filipinos, many countries in Southeast Asia, to sign the Treaty of San Francisco. The Treaty of San Francisco was headed no less by Macapagal himself, Diosdado Macapagal, Romulo, and many others, many prominent Filipinos, signed the Treaty of Paris in 1950. In that particular provision, it states that the Philippines, that the United States, I mean, it was sponsored by the United States, the United States urged Japan to surrender Spratly and Paracel Islands to China, not Taiwan. You have to surrender these islands to the People's Republic of China. And immediately after that, it was followed by the Treaty of Taiwan, I mean the Taiwan Conference. That Taiwan Conference was intended to revise the Treaty of San Francisco. Instead of using... yes. Instead of using China, they used Taiwan. That was the purpose of the San Francisco Treaty. So to make it short, it is clear that the Philippines signed that agreement acknowledging that Taiwan and Spratly Islands and Paracel Islands belongs to China, not Taiwan. That is one agreement, it's one evidence indicating that it is not ours, it is not part of the Philippines. Then finally, that was late, much later, I was able to talk with the First Lady, Madam Imelda Romualdez Marcos. She asked me, but the President issued 2 decrees regarding our ownership to these islands. In fact, she asked me that. Tinanong nga niya ako kung ano talagang position ko. No, my position is clear. That the 2 decrees are this. The first decree simply means that the Philippines is not ours. It becomes naging atin yan using the word because of the we call that continental shelf principle. Ang sabihin niyan, pagka may continental shelf, ang pinakamalapit dyan na isla, to Palawan is Spratly. So, yan ang number 1 na basis ng ano. But President Marcos never intended to own that as part of the Philippines, but simply by annexation, by collateral, how do you call that? Collateral because of the continental shelf. The second decree, I explained it to ma'am, is that the second decree, it was extended because of our accession to the so-called UNCLOS. The UNCLOS extended our territorial waters to 200-mile limit. In-extend natin yan. So, because of that, inabot yung, how do you call that, yung Spratly Islands, because of this UNCLOS. But UNCLOS was ratified in 1982. And they call that the Treaty of Paris was ratified in 1898. And so, I explained this to Mrs. Marcos na iba yung decree, iba yung UNCLOS, iba yung yung PDs na in-issue ni President Marcos. So, maybe the Philippines insisted on, when I was invited to speak in Hainan Island, including part of this South China Sea problem. I explained that Philippine position, they were talking about at that time the problem in Scarborough or Kalayaan. I said, Scarborough just happened, we insisted on our claim that Scarborough is part of the Philippines. No. We only managed to extend that because of the UNCLOS. But Scarborough is 270 kilometers away from the Philippines. Malayo pa rin, labas pa rin ng Pilipinas yun. And then, yun nga, I would like to clarify this. These are many things that nagiging problema. So, I hope this will clarify about my position on our claim in the South China Sea. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson Lee and Mr. Rod Kapunan, for those historical lessons. Marami tayong pag-uusapang malalim ata sa mga panelists natin. Now, may we have Manila Times columnist and book author Mr. Mauro Ghiasamon.
Good morning. To begin with, I really don't know why I'm here. No. This came as a total surprise. You know, whenever I do something, I do it out of conviction, not for such consideration as recognition or award or things like that. No. My writings about China is born out of my, understanding of human and social history. If you would come down to it, whenever a social system gets institutionalized in one section of the world, all the other systems in the rest of the world just get assimilated into that system. For instance, capitalism came about as a result of the French Revolution in 1948 and 1848, I mean. So all the rest of the systems in the world, the feudal system, got assimilated into the capitalist system. Now, out of the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, socialism got institutionalized in Russia. And after that, all the other systems in the world, the capitalist system, got assimilated into the socialist system. Now, it just turned that came about that the 73-year-old socialist system in Russia was overthrown in 1991 because of the glasnost perestroika by Mikhail Gorbachev. And then socialism came into the one cradle of China. Today, China stands at the one single cradle of socialism. And proof of that is the worldwide spread of President Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative. What I'm trying to point out is that because of this development, there is no other way for all the other systems in the world but to get assimilated into the Chinese system. That's the reason why I have been writing about the China leadership in the world economy. There is no other way for the Philippines to go but to go the Chinese way. Otherwise, it is a disservice for a Filipino not to recognize that. Kung yung BRI ni President Xi Jinping got pumped out to Europe, to Africa, to the Middle East, why not to enable that is the Philippines? So I say, for a Filipino not to recognize that is a disservice. And that is why I've been agitating for a widespread dissemination of this socialist system of China in the Philippines. That's the only way that the Philippines can achieve prosperity. No other way. That's why I wrote in my book, The Way, the Truth, China, The Way, the Truth, and the Light. It's an anthology of my columns in the Manila Times. It is comprised of only 50% of what I've written about China. The other 50% remains to be published in part of probably of that book. I'm 81 now. I hope to live a little longer to be able to do part of my book. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mauro Ghiasamon. And I'm actually an avid reader of your column in the Manila Times. So happy to see you here. And may I also acknowledge the presence of APPCU 2021 laureate, Mr. Herman Laurel. And of course, the officers of APPCU as well. And our next opening speaker is Philippine Director of Confucius Institute at Angeles University Foundation, Professor Kevin Franco Pamintuan, who would be joining us via Zoom. Is he ready? Okay, Professor Pamintuan, the floor is yours.
早上好, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and to all our friends all over the world. Allow me to express my appreciation to the members of the organizing committee of the APPCU and for choosing me to be one of the awardees for this year. For me, and for my team, this award will be another source of inspiration. And me and my team will definitely continue our works in providing the Filipino youth with access to Chinese language learning, giving them another and its culture. Each one of us, at least, okay, has one drop of Chinese blood, and we just need to recognize that our Filipino identity in many ways is influenced by our bond with the Chinese people for the last 600 years. So I believe we just need to recognize, we just need to accept that in many ways, we are not just neighbors, we are not just countries in one continent, but of course, we are one family. 天下一家, we are one family. So I believe since we are one family, we need to work hand in hand for a more prosperous Philippines, and of course, for a more improved bilateral relations between the China and the Philippines. So I wish that the Philippines, as part of the Asian family, as part of the China-ASEAN family, will be among the first countries, okay, to benefit from the rich resources, from the expertise, and of course, from the good deeds of our neighbor, of our family members, the People's Republic of China. With that, magandang umaga po and mabuhay po tayong lahat, and congratulations to all the awardees, and maraming salamat po, APPCU.
Thank you so much, Professor Pamintuan, for explaining to us how the identity of the peoples of China and the Philippines are deeply intertwined. Before we continue to our last speaker, may we remind everyone that we will have an open forum after the opening statements, and we will get questions from the media, as well as from our live stream viewers who are watching us from SMNI and of course from my page for the motherland. So those who are watching us online, please ask questions, because our laureates have actually given us a lot of insights about the relationship between China and the Philippines. Now, for our last but not the least speaker, we have senior lecturer at the University of the Philippines, Visayas, Professor Celso L. Cainglet, who will be joining us also via Zoom. Sir, Professor Cainglet, the floor is now yours.
Without such expect this. When I first came out in public forums on Philippine-China relations, especially on the laws of the sea with Camentong Laurel, we were like voices in the wilderness. Nobody listens to us because we were going against Gulayat, the mainstream media. For someone who have studied and understand international law, especially the laws of the sea, I was scandalized by what were coming out in the media. There were so much disinformation. Eventually, I realized that the bottom line here, because there is a shift of prosperity from the west to the east. Asia's time has come. That's why many Western nations could not take it. Hence, they demonized China. They are steering the good relationship of ASEAN countries with China. And I'm glad finally our voices were heard. But still, there's still so much to do we're just beginning. And I have 3 wishes from APCO, which I'm also willing to help. Number one, if you can come up with a good communication plan, a very simple, in a very simple language that a man on the streets would understand, because many Filipinos still do not understand a more adequate, do not have a grasp of more adequate substance of the issue. Second, if you can do a campus tour, actually we kick off already last 2019 in the University of San Agustin in Iloilo with Camentong Laurel, General Corpus, Kaado Paglinawan, Austin Ong, Ambassador Encomienda. And the response was really overwhelming. In fact, the students were saying, how come we never heard of this in mainstream media before? And actually, we already have a list of universities in line, but the pandemic put a stop to the momentum. So if you can continue that campus tour to reach out young people, especially students. Third and last, we need to do a lot of lobbying in Congress, because many of our local legislations are still not in tune with the many international treaties that we signed and ratified. One of them is UNCLOS. The issue is too technical to discuss right now, but I'm willing to sit down if you can have a technical committee, because you have to present position papers, lobbying papers to Congress to attune our local legislation to the international treaties that we signed. With that, again, I want to congratulate my fellow laureate. As I said, there's still so much to do, and I hope we will be together with our friends in the Chinese Embassy to spread the good news. So maraming salamat po, Che at mabuhay.
Thank you so much, Professor Cainglet, about informing us about the misinformation that's been going on for a long time about China and Philippine relations. And I think that's one of the key reasons why APPCU is founded, in order to dispel the myths surrounding the relationship between China and the Philippines. Before we continue in open forum, I will just have to discuss some key takeaways from the statements made by our 2022 laureates. Of course, we have discussed a lot about history of the relationship between the Chinese and the Filipino people. Another important information is the deeply intertwined identity between Chinese and Filipinos. Parang hinubog tayo sa iisang, ano ba yung terms of Tagalog nito? We were woven from the same thread, diba? Cut from the same fabric. And that's very important to remember, because, that would be the foundation of your good relations. You share a common identity. And of course, we have a lot of some contentious issues as well, especially about the territorial history of the Philippines and its relationship with our claim in the South China Sea. And of course, the recommendation of Professor Cainglet on how to improve the China and Philippine relationship, especially on how to dispel the misinformation. It's very important that Professor Cainglet mentioned that disinformation that had been going on in mainstream media for a long time. And as he said, a lot of these people that you're seeing right now are really voice in the wilderness, especially in the previous administration. Because, when I started my blog, I also experienced that. And a lot of diplomats actually contacted me and telling me that, finally there is someone out there who is voicing out what they actually wanted to voice out, but they were so afraid, because if you do that, you will be tagged as a Chinese spy. Diba? At least sila Chinese spy lang. Ako Russian spy. Chinese spy. Lahat na ng klaseng spy. So without further ado, we will now open the floor for questions from our media. You may, can you please just go here, and the mic is already open. please identify yourself, from which publication or media
Hello.
organization you're from.
Yes, good morning. I'm Nestor Cuartero. I'm from Manila Bulletin.
Okay.
Very mainstream media.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the winners in this year's, the second APPCU Awards, specifically my friend Wilson Flores. He deserves it very much. And Director Mauro Ghiasamon. Thank you. Mr. Laurel also. Anyway, China is an old ally, a friend, even family to the Philippines. But through the years, this perception, this understanding has dimmed and has been blurred by whatever factors, no? So now there's a need for an association like APPCU that fosters understanding, better understanding of China by Filipinos, and maybe vice versa, no? But maybe let's focus on the Philippine end, no? So what do you think is the reason, or probably the reasons, why such an understanding of China blurred from the Philippine perspective? What happened when we had, based on what we know, what we studied, and what the speakers were saying about the century-old friendship between the two countries? What happened?
Mr. Wilson Lee,
yes.
would you like to answer the question?
Yes. Thank you, Professor Nestor Cuartero. Not only is he a good columnist, he's also professor at UST. I think the reason is before the colonizers came to the Philippines, we have had very smooth Philippine-China relationship. It was very smooth. It was trade and cultural, non-stop. And I think what Renato Constantino and other writers wrote before, we had been brainwashed or miseducated by our Western colonizers to the point that many of us have lost or forgotten our Asian history, that we are Asians. Some of us, including me, maybe we have been miseducated, maybe too much colonial education. We think we are more Americans than the Americans. So some of their misconceptions about China, the Westerners have a misunderstanding of our Asian culture. In fact, the word inscrutable is used often to describe the Orient and the East. So I think it's a cultural gap that we have to work on. That's why Ms. Sasot is very important. People like her, educators and media people, hopefully to close the gap between the truth and the misconceptions. I think a lot of people in the West have a wrong notion of Asia and of China na we have been exposed to almost every day. Most of our, what I read is from the Western English media. So I think that's one reason. But fundamentally, I think Filipinos and Chinese and other Asians, we share the same. Tama sabi ni Sas, we have the same history, we have the same values essentially. So hopefully we can build on that.
Anyone else from, yes, Mr. Herman Laurel.
Hello, yes. Well, narinig po natin ang ating mga resource persons, ating mga awardees, including from the Zoom. And we have a lot of things to explain to our nation now that the table has been turned in terms of Filipino understanding of China. We have had a perspective from history, from particular treaties, but historically, simulan po natin doon sa sinabi ni Kabansang Wilson na dala ng China hindi naman gera, kolonyalismo, kundi siopaw, siomai, mami, and bihon, and so many other things, cultural. But that has gone on to today. And China brought us Sinovac, Sinopharm, Binondo Intramuros Bridge, Estrella Pantaleon Bridge, Kaliwa Dam, soon to be put up, Bicol Express, again, revival, and so on. So, 1,000 taong kasaysayan po yan ng pagkakaibigan. Doon sa maliit na problema daw ng South China Sea, wala namang problema actually. Nakita natin po, hindi nawawala sa Pilipino at sa Pilipinas yung ating claim doon. Dahil doon sa reed bank or ano tawag sa Tagalog nan? Recto bank. Nagkaroon tayo ng kasunduan na hatian sa mga mabubungkal po dati na gas at oil doon. 60% for the Philippines and 40% for China. At yan din po sa ibang mga resources dyan dahil dinadaan sa usapan. So, Professor Portero's question, we have much longer history of cooperation and benefits and much more to come. Parating pa po, daan-daang taon pong cooperation. Sabi ni Kabansang Professor Celso Cainglet, and this is part of historical process naman ng economic evolution ng mundo at ng sangkatauhan, technological innovation ng mga bansa at lipunan. Nasabi niya, there is a transition from the west to the east itong siglong ito, this century. The transfer of wealth and power to the east. Hindi lang po China, kundi India rin. So, ang nawala sa Pilipino sa education natin is history. We must really focus on our history, and then we will see one of the most significant and pivotal civilizations in human history from here on is the Philippines. Tayo po ang fulcrum ng kapayapaan o kaguluhan sa Asia. We are the pivot for peace or tensions and war, which an old culture, the United States and the Western civilization, 500 years of imperialism, na ngayon naghihingalo, pero gustong ipilit na makabalik po sa Asia at mangibabaw sa Asia. So, I don't know.
Yeah, well, speaking of, yes, I agree very much with your observations, Mr. Laurel. But speaking of exposure and terminology, remember that the West would call us the Far East. That's why they call us the Far East. We are in this side of the world. Ang tawag nila sa atin Far East, no? So that context alone speaks much of a certain bias, no? Anyway, my second question and the last one.
Sir, Mr. Professor Pamintuan will also answer your question po, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, sure. Please.
Thank you, Professor Pamintuan.
Thank you, please.
The floor is yours. Okay. Yes, sir. Please answer the question.
Thank you.
Thank you po. I agree with Kamentong and Sir Wilson because for the past years, disputes and differences between the two countries have been magnified by some media entities. Negative notions about the China and Philippine relations have been dominating the media. That is the reason why the APPCU, APPCU, and other organizations should work harder to highlight the achievements of the cooperation between the Philippines and China, achievements which may actually directly or indirectly affect the lives of the common Filipino people. Like, yun ang kulang sa atin. We keep on looking on our differences, but we fail to recognize the achievements of our cooperation. I think what is more important, development to our country and of course contribute to the betterment of the lives of the common Filipino people. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat po.
Yes, thank you.
May we have your final questions, sir?
I think we should actualize the suggestions of Professor Cainglet, no, about launching an effective communication plan to further benefit understanding of China by Filipinos. My final question is about the cultural exchanges. What was the latest cultural exchange project between, initiated by APPCU, and who were the beneficiaries? How often is this being conducted? How does one qualify to be a cultural exchangee? In what fields are these being done? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sass.
Thank you po. Anyone who would like to answer the question? Okay, Miss Anna, Professor Anna Malinti.
Okay, thank you for that question. Thank you also for everyone for coming and for the speeches of our awardees and our guests. No, with regard to the different activities of APPCU, there are a lot. No, it's just that as of the moment, because of the pandemic, we kind of been limited. So for now, we're organizing APPCU forums and what you call the Manila Forum. This is basically a platform where different issues that have something to do with Philippine-China relations are being discussed. But as to the cultural exchanges, as of the moment, sir, medyo na-stop siya. It's precisely because of the COVID. But before, we really have that different exchanges. Sometimes we sent cultural dignitaries to China, and sometimes we invite here as well. And also, we facilitate trade partnership and economic partnership between the two countries. But as of the moment, sir, because of the COVID, we're kind of limited in terms of movement. But
Professor.
What was the last one
in
in 2019?
2019, sir. Sir, I was not yet a member of the organization at that time, no? But I think earlier in the AVP, there was, how do you call that? There was like a flash of photos of the different cultural activities, no, that we stage as an organization. So that one, sir, I can provide it. I can provide actually the, how do you call that, the write-ups for that later, sir, since I'm the one organizing the whole thing. So, sir, I will provide that later, sir. Thank you, sir. But thank you for that question. I think that question is very relevant because I believe that when you build relationship between states, I think cultural aspect is important. The exchanges, not only in terms of state-to-state level, but people-to-people level, and most especially cultural exchanges. Sir, I think I need to ask our board about these things. At the moment, sir, I don't have exact number. Yes, sir. We facilitate. We don't give scholarship really like from our side, but we facilitate scholarship that's being funded by China. So, like for example, if there's an available scholarship, we ask certain young students or young people to apply, and then we'll help and recommend. That's one of our advocacy and one of our programs and project po.
Anna.
Where do people apply? Where do they go to apply for the scholarship?
Sir?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd just like to add that there are many institutions and bodies facilitating all these cultural exchanges. But just an example, there's the Soledad University in Fujian province. An entire university under the, I forgot the larger university, but an entire college dedicated to accepting Filipino scholars to study in Fujian province. Just one.
Just one. But
I think Kevin Pamintuan has a lot of information there because Kevin's Confucius Institute, I think, has graduated 25,000 or overall of all the Confucius Institutes. No?
Yes.
So there's a lot of information that will fill a book, but I think he is indicating that we should publish a book on all these projects.
Yes, sir, that's a good suggestion. But I think when you talk about scholarship, especially master's degree and even PhD, the Chinese embassy has a program for that. They call it the ASEAN Young Leaders Scholarship. Usually it happens January first quarter, and they announce it. And then APPCU will also have a chance to nominate our recommendations or recommendees. And then that's the time that, we do that.
I'll add also, Huawei has a continuing program of training ICT professionals, information, communication technology, Huawei. So there's a lot of it that people don't know. It would fill a volume.
Yes, I think there's a lot actually that we need to publish and popularize, especially scholarship. I think for young people who wants to study for like graduate studies, master's degree and PhDs. So
Tell us about it.
Yes, we will. We will more publish it. Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful question.
Thank you so much, Professor. Before we move on to our next question, let's just summarize a bit of insights that they told us. About xenophobia in our history, about the role of our Western colonizers in actually implanting xenophobia among our people. Just a bit of historical fact there was actually a genocide against the Chinese in the Philippines committed by natives and was actually provoked by the Spaniards. No, I think there were like 2 instances of genocide. If you go to Chinatown, you would in Binondo, you would know the history of that genocide. So actually, a lot of our anger towards the Chinese was actually provoked by Westerners. And I was reading the comments from live stream, and then they said here that we all have a long history with Muslims, for people from India and the Chinese, and the mark of our relation, the characteristic of our relationship is via trade. So we were like trading people. We were only colonized by the Spaniards and other Western powers, and then that changed the game. So may we now proceed to our next question, please. Please say your name and from where are you from. Thank you.
First of all, good morning, and
Sir, please.
congratulations to all the awardees. So if there is one person who knows each and every one of you by reading the information, aside from Professor Ana Malindug-Uy, it's me. Because I'm the one editing all the write-ups that came since the first awards for publication for the Manila Times. It is just to conform the style of the Manila Times. So I've been covering this for 2 years now. I really don't have a question, but don't you think that Mandarin should be now incorporated into the educational system of the Philippine educational system? Because in the 18th century, when we were under the Spanish rule, Spanish was part of the education system. Now, in the 19th, 20th century, when the Americans came, English became a part of our educational system. And I think, since bata pa ako, may mga kapitbahay ako mga Chinese eh. So, alam ko na yung xie, ni hao. So, I think na, alam naman natin, Chinese pinakamaraming population sa buong mundo. And it's being used not just in China, but also in Singapore, in Malaysia, and other countries, ginagamit yung Mandarin. So, don't you think it's about time na may Mandarin na sa educational system natin?
Anyone who would like to answer?
Sas, may I recommend that we ask Kevin if he is still on the Zoom because he is an educator. Kevin Pamintuan. Can we request Kevin to input here?
Is Professor Pamintuan still there? So may we begin with Professor Pamintuan about incorporating Mandarin in our education system?
Thank you po, Sir Herman, and I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our previous Philippine director. We have Dr. Lourdes P. Nepomuceno, who is now in UP Diliman. So during the time of Dr. Lou Nepomuceno, our CIA were able to establish partnership with the Department of Education. So since 2011, the Chinese Mandarin is already being offered under the special program in foreign language. So we are already implementing the offering of the Chinese Mandarin to the public secondary schools for the past 11 years. And every year, we have at least 11,000 to 12,000 Filipino public high school students learning the language. It is actually being offered from grade 7, 8, 9, and 10 in the junior high school, and we are currently working to include it to the senior high school level so that we can provide a career path using the Chinese Mandarin for the Filipino youth. So the Chinese Mandarin was already incorporated in the K-12 National Education Program of the Philippines, of the Department of Education, along with German, Spanish, Korean. We also have French. We also have Japanese. So under the SPFL program, we have 6 languages. We have 6 foreign languages. And one of those languages is the Chinese Mandarin. And we were able to successfully train 396 public school teachers, meaning 396 DepEd teachers to teach Chinese Mandarin. So we are not only importing volunteer teachers from China to the Philippines, we are also training our own teacher, our own DepEd teacher, to actually teach Chinese Mandarin as a foreign language. And I am proud that some of the fruits or some of the graduates of the SPFL Chinese Mandarin are already working in different companies, and they are already earning more than what I'm earning. So I'm very proud of this program, and I believe there is really a need for the Chinese Mandarin to be further expanded, and sana more schools will be implementing Chinese Mandarin. Currently, we have 93 public high schools from 9 regions of the Philippines offering the Chinese Mandarin.
Thank you so much, Professor Pamintuan. I believe Professor Kainglet would also like to answer the question.
Yes, regarding the first question, what happened? What happened was there was really a deliberate, well-funded, well-calibrated operations to demonize China. There are media present here. You can check if what I'm saying is true or not, because my source was impeccable. Albert Del Rosario, when he was Secretary of Foreign Affairs, hired Center for Strategic and International Studies, an NGO based in Washington, which is run by the CIA. The money paid to CSIS was diverted to Albert Del Rosario Foundation. This is where clowns like Hadrian, Carpio, et al., media, mainstream media, were getting funds for their media operation campaign to demonize China. And the operation, Heart of the Filipino Cinderella Complex. Inapi kami, inagaw yung teritoryo namin. Paano maagaw yan? Dagat yan. Nobody owns the sea in SAS, you know that. Because of the doctrine that the sea is the common heritage of mankind. No? Tapos yung mga terminology, barkong pandigma ng China. Chinese Coast Guard yun, those are civilian ships. Kaya nga nilipat natin yung Coast Guard natin sa DOTC. No? Because in international relations, if your Coast Guard is under the Navy and you send your Coast Guard to rescue a ship in distress in territorial waters, that is an act of war. No? So there was really a deliberate campaign to demonize China.
Thank you so much, Professor Kainglet, for that insight. Anyone from our on-floor panel?
Maganda yung question kanina nung taga Manila Times. I think it's the global phenomenon now of people learning Mandarin. We should also do that. Like the owner of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, I read that he studies Mandarin every day, 1 hour. The princess of Thailand, the very popular sister of the king now, speaks very fluent Mandarin. I think it's a very good advantage for the Philippines to learn more languages, especially tourism. I believe the Philippines will be like the Spain and France and Greece of Asia for China tourists. We have tropical climate. We have happy culture in the Philippines. China, they are overworked. They are overworked and they have a very harsh climate of winter. So we are like the Greece and France and Spain of Asia. So if we have more Mandarin speakers, I hope we'll get a bigger slice of the China tourism market, not just Thailand and Singapore. Thailand has like 11 million China tourists every year before the pandemic. We have only 1 or 2 million, not yet even 1 million. So that's a great idea. I hope we all learn more Mandarin. SAS, di ka ba yata pinanganak noon nung sumikat ang Mandarin group na F4 singers, actors and actresses. That's
pinanganak na po ako noon.
Hindi kasi mga ka-teenager. Walang biro. That's one way to promote cultural understanding is to learn their language. And I think we Filipinos, unlike other countries, we are more adaptable to foreign languages. We are the most international people. We are everywhere in the world. Diba? OFWs and seamen. So I think learning Mandarin is a good way to promote better understanding between Philippines and China.
Well, I think if we want to be a trading country, we must be multilingual. Like, for example, the Netherlands. If you go to, I studied in the Netherlands and lived there for 11 years. And they speak at least 4 languages.
Wow, the Dutch.
At least 4, yes, the Dutch.
Imagine.
And now they're now studying Mandarin in high school.
Wow.
So that when they in college, they can speak Mandarin because the Dutch loves to trade, and then they know in their history, if you want to trade, you have to speak the language of the people you're trading with. So, ayun po, Mr. Ghiasamon, Mauro Ghiasamon.
Yeah, bago tayo mabusan ng oras, I'd like to make an observation. No? If you guys notice it, our discussion about Philippine-China understanding seems to be confined to the upper level of society. There is not one concern that has been brought out regarding bringing the benefits of friendly relations with China to the grassroots level. Nobody has ever raised that, but that's my primary concern. No. Culture, lahat yan sa mga elitista, no? Economics, mga business entrepreneurs, but nothing has been said about bringing China friendship to the grassroots level. And mind you, Chinese goodwill will be measured not according to culture, not according to intellectual criteria, but according to the economic benefits that China will bring to the Philippine masses. Thank you.
So that's a very important point to highlight. Material benefits, actual material, tangible material benefits for the Filipino masses. Well, more than the bridge. Because as Mr. Mauro Ghiasamon, these are elitists, and the bridge is mostly used by people with cars. So maybe if they can give us a better public transportation system. Anyone else who would like to ask a question? We are now down to our last two questions. Yes, ma'am. Please identify yourself and where you're from.
Okay, before anything else, I'd like to congratulate all our awardees. I'm Direct Lani Esteban, Director of Chinatown TV. My question is, if you are to give one more lecture to those people who still do not understand the PH and the Philippines-China understanding relationship, or to those people who are still misinformed, what would the highlights be? My question may be answered by Mr. Mauro Ghiasamon, Mr. Kapunan, or Mr. Flores.
Okay, to begin with, I don't think Filipinos have this ill will toward China. It's not that China is being hated by Filipinos. It's just that Filipino minds are being corrupted by Western propaganda. So the main culprit in this area is the United States, America. It's America's cultural enslavement, continuing cultural enslavement of the Filipino people that accounts for this widespread ill will of the Filipino people towards China. What I'm trying to drive at is how do you cure that ill will? You are with China? No. You destroy the credibility of America. It is America that has been poisoning the minds of the Filipino. So destroy the credibility of that culprit. One way of doing this is trace history. Like, for instance, during World War II, the devastation of Manila was attributed to the Japanese forces. No. Manila until 1945 was a beautiful city, still the pearl of the Orient. But came MacArthur in 1945. He bombarded the city and reduced Manila to the most ravaged city, second most ravaged city during World War II, next to Warsaw, Poland. So it's not the Japanese that destroyed Manila, it was the Americans. And yet, history books, history lessons always point out to the Japanese as the culprit in the ravagement of Manila. So it's and MacArthur was the hero. The Americans were the hero. We have to destroy the credibility of America in order for China to gain the upper hand in the battle for uh, for uh, the uh, for the liberation, cultural liberation of the Filipino mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who would like to add anything to that?
Well, actually, we purposely try to omit our own history. We filed the case against China over in the South China Sea, but we did not mention the Treaty of Paris. We did not even mention the San Francisco Treaty or the Taiwan Treaty. These are important documents we should have presented. That's why we are muddled. We try to avert the fact that in those treaties, it does not include the Spratly Islands as part of the Philippines. Yun lang naman importante dyan eh. Another thing is the San Francisco Treaty. It's important. It's an important document kasi yan, ang Amerika mismo nagsasabi na sa Japan, sinabi ng Amerikano sa Hapon, isauli mo sa China yan kasi sa China yan. Pero hindi nila sinabi na balik mo sa Pilipinas yan. Kasi ang Pilipinas hindi talaga kasali doon sa Treaty of Paris na yun. Yun lang.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson Lee?
Yes. To that question, I'd like to see, I hope Philippines will see China not only as a good friend, not only as an important neighbor, but as an opportunity. Alam mo, before the pandemic, I was invited to Shanghai one time. I saw mga fruit shops. And then sa fruit shops, may nakalagay doon very proudly sa harap. Nakalagay, Philippine pineapples, Philippine bananas, Philippine, you'd be very proud. Tapos, that's one of the many benefits of our better ties with Philippines and China. If I'm not mistaken, we are the #1 exporter of bananas now to the world's biggest consumer market, which is China. So let us see China as a great opportunity for tourism, for English teachers. I heard thousands of English teachers all over the Philippines teach, I don't know, millions or how many Chinese kids via internet. So we are not only good friends. I hope we should also remember, when my mother got sick, I remember, it wasn't our relatives far away that helped her. It was our next door neighbor that drove her to the hospital ER. So China is an important neighbor, is an important trading partner, and hopefully always a good friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who would like to answer Ms. Lani's question? If not, we will now proceed to Dr. Nepomuceno, APPCU 2021 awardee. He has a question and she's going to join us via Zoom. Dr. Nepomuceno, welcome, and the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to let everybody know the extent of Mandarin language education in the Philippines. In my capacity as the director of Confucius Institutes, of 2 Confucius Institutes in the Philippines, namely University of the Philippines and Angeles University, which started in 2010. Now, from then on, in as much as Confucius Institute are based on the collaboration between a Philippine university and a Chinese university. In our case, in the University of the Philippines, our partner is Xiamen University. Okay, when I joined University of the Philippines and led and was tasked to lead the Confucius Institute, it was still in an early stage wherein nothing, no framework whatsoever was done, just like AUF during my time. But anyway, I just realized that language teaching is not for schools only. So when I joined the University of the Philippines, being the national university, it has a lot of unique features. And University of the Philippines is not partnering with a so-so university, right? Because of its, it is a at par with the Ivy Leagues in the United States. But just to let you know that we started partnerships with the League of Cities of the Philippines. And the League of Cities of the Philippines are subsidized by the mayors. Okay? So the League of the Cities of the Philippines signed a memorandum of agreement with UP to extend the Mandarin language classes to 146 city colleges and universities in the Philippines. To name a few, we have University of Makati, headed by Mayor Binay, and other colleges and universities around the Philippines. And then we, former Chancellor Tanden and I realized that we will not only target schools, but we should target the key government offices. So we did that, and we were able to partner with the Department of Foreign Affairs. And we are handling the credit courses for would-be ambassadors and consulates around China. And then the Bureau of Immigration, we were tasked to educate the frontliners in all the airports in the Philippines. And then we moved to the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And then we also tapped the government-owned companies, which are Clark Development Corporation and Subic, because we realized that Central Luzon is the hub of the future in terms of business, in terms of tourism, in terms of education, because a lot of universities are moving out of in other words, they are trying to penetrate in the market in the Subic-Clark corridors, namely National University, Miriam College, and other Ivy League schools. They are now in place, and they're setting up their campuses, satellite campuses around this corridor. So we realized that our Mandarin language has a good future in the Philippines. And Confucius Institutes are actually the shakers and the movers of Mandarin language in the Philippines. So we have a big task ahead, although if you read the periodicals, a lot of Confucius Institutes in the United States are closing. Now, our Confucius Institute in the Philippines are different. We are not governed by foreign interference. UP, we check the curriculum, we check everything before we even use it in the classroom. So not like in the United States, which we want to dispel this notion that China is, trying to infiltrate the young minds. No, it's not. The Philippines is not like that. So we have a different setup of Confucius Institutes in the Philippines, which is entirely different with that in the United States. And I think our new funding agency, CIF, is going to expand, and they will tap more colleges and universities in the Philippines to establish their own Confucius Institutes. And one of them is, I think, Mariano Marcos School in Iloilo. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nepomuceno. Professor Anna, do we still have time for one more question? Sorry, we don't have time. Okay, we can have that later. But before we proceed with the last part of our program, we will have a special announcement. I would like to announce that the APPCU 2022 award ceremony is on June 10. So please mark your calendars. That's a Friday. Again, June 10, Friday. It will be held at the Mayuri Grand Ballroom of Dusit Thani Hotel. This is in Makati, no? Dusit Thani Hotel? Yes. So, Mayuri Grand Ballroom, Dusit Thani Hotel, June 10, Friday. The ceremonial rite program is scheduled at exactly 3 p.m. and there will be a pre-show from 2:30 to 3 p.m., which I will be hosting. And the award ceremony is a hybrid one, so we will have a face-to-face and as well as online presence from our other guests and Nobel laureates. So we'll see you on Friday, June 10, 2:30, beginning from 2:30 at the Mayuri Grand Ballroom, Dusit Thani Hotel. Now, since I was informed that Sir Peter Lavinia is no longer available, so later it will be Professor Ana Malindugoy who will be speaking on his behalf. But please be reminded that the award ceremony is also going to be live streamed on the official Facebook pages of APPCU, Chinese Embassy Manila, Chinatown TV, GTNR, the Manila Times, and SMNI. And moving forward, may we now have Professor Ana Malindugoy to speak on behalf of Mr. Peter Lavinia. And this will be followed by Councillor Si Yonghui from the Chinese Embassy Manila, then by Mr. Wilson Lee Flores, Mr. Rod Capunan, Mr. Mauro Ghiasamon, Professor Celso Cainglet, and Professor Kevin Franco. So here are our closing statement, beginning with Professor Ana Malindugoy speaking on behalf of Peter Lavinia.
Okay, as the Vice Chairperson of the APPCU Organizing Committee, I would like to thank everyone for coming to this media forum. Thank you so much. The APPCU Organizing Committee appreciates so much your participation and for joining us in this momentous event. To the APPCU 2022 awardees, my congratulations, and I will see you at the awarding ceremony on Friday, and that's 2 o'clock. Again, we have a pre-show at 2:30, but the ceremony will start at exactly 3 p.m. Congratulations and have a pleasant day to everyone.
Thank you so much, Professor Ana Malindugoy. Now, may we have Councillor Si Yonghui from Zoom.
Hi, everyone. I've been listening attentively to all the all the statements from our laureates, and also the questions raised by our media friends, as well as the answers. Very wonderful answers from our laureates and also members of the organizing committee. I think we do have discussion on various topics. There were people-to-people culture. There were also some of the hard issues, which really, some of the misunderstanding. Anyway, this is a successful press conference. I congratulate everyone attending this forum, and also warm congratulations to the awardees of this year of the APPCU Awards. Once again, I hope to see you again on our Friday, June 10th awarding ceremony. And this is actually very exciting. The first time we have a physical awarding ceremony in hotel, thanks to the improving pandemic situation. And see you then, and hope everyone can join us either physically or online. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor C. Now may we have Mr. Wilson Lee Flores.
Thank you, Sas. Thank you once again to AID Association for Philippine-China Understanding, and to the Chinese Embassy for this award for all the awardees. I think the Philippines and China are not only good friends, we are complementary in many ways. Now under the outgoing President Duterte and the incoming President, we are strengthening independent foreign policy, while our neighbor China has a policy called Community of Shared Destiny. These are complementary. Also, we have build here, while in China they have a Belt and Road Initiative. So we are really complementary and partners. Thank you to the award, and hopefully we will all continue to deepen and expand friendship and understanding between our two neighbors, our neighboring countries. Thank you. Maraming salamat.
Mr. Rod Kapunan?
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you and clarify to you certain things, particularly our relations with China. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Until now, I really cannot yet feel the impact of the award that I'm about to receive in a few days. I really don't know how to react yet, but let me just tell you what I've done writing about China is born out of conviction, not of any need to be recognized or things like that. And I'd like to reiterate my plea that Philippines-China understanding must be brought down to the lowliest folks of Filipino masses. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May we now have Professor Celso Cainglet, who's on Zoom? Yes, sir.
Yes, Bidang, Sas, to those who much are given, more are expected. Because of the honor that was given to me, I'm now ready to give it back to our friends, China, and most of all to the country, the Philippines. Because after the pomp and circumstance, the real work begins. And as I said here, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And lastly, Professor Kevin Franco Pamintuan.
As a product of the friendly relation between the Philippines and China, I myself will remain committed to work harder and to look forward for a shared future of the Philippines and China, to bring a win-win situation to everyone. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, everyone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, this is the end of our media forum this morning. On behalf of APPCU, the Chinese Embassy in Manila, the APPCU 2022 Organizing Committee, and the 2022 APPC Laureates, thank you very much for joining us. We wish you all a pleasant day. We will see you at the APPCU 2022 award ceremony this Friday at the Dusit Thani Hotel. Once again, thank you. Sisi, did I pronounce that right? Shishi. Maraming salamat po, and long live the Philippines-China understanding and friendship. Mabuhay po kayong lahat, and enjoy your lunch, and thank you for not turning off my mic.
By the way, for photo ops, the media wants to see the awardees with them. So can you please stand beside the projector, the awardees, so that the media can take a picture. Yeah. Councilor Shep, please don't go. Stay there. We'll have a photo. Actually, Sas, you can join them as well. And also, Sir Ding and all the officers of the organizing committee, please, just beside the screen. Yeah. Yes, John. The media will take a photo of all of you.
Subscribe to SMNI News Channel and turn on notification button for more news updates.